And our first one is, I just chose Dean Klinkenberg because I have his book back there, and I don't know if he's going to talk about it, but he explores the ways landscape, history, and personal memory shape human experience through historical fiction, essays, guidebooks, and noir-inspired fiction. His work examines themes of places, identity, ambiguity, and quiet tensions that linger beneath everyday life. Much of his work is centered around the Mississippi River, and he lives in St. Louis with his husband. Please welcome Dean.
Well, thank you, and I'm not going to talk about any of that. So, I'm going to talk about how travel can change your life, how it changed my life. We know travel can be transformative and change us because we have books that tell us this. Eat, Pray, Love, Under the Tuscan Sun, Into the Wild. These are all books written by people who use usually one trip to find meaning in their lives and deal with a life crisis. Travel has changed me too, although it wasn't a firework kind of experience. It's been more like the wind's gently shaping a sand dune. So I've had plenty of fears and anxieties. I fear about being victimized, fears of looking stupid. Hopefully that won't play out tonight. But all kinds of those little fears, and I've used travel as a way for me to kind of chip away at those. I come from a nomadic family. I don't know where that guy in the shorts came from over there, but we took a lot of family trips when I was a kid. I went to 4 different grade schools. My family moved around quite a bit over the years. I think part of the effect of that is it made my world a lot bigger than the neighborhood where I live. This is Grenoble, France. When I was in college, I got accepted to study abroad for a semester. It was going to be a life-changing experience for me, but I'll never know because I backed out at the last minute. Oh. I was afraid my French-speaking skills wouldn't be good enough. I was worried I'd look like a fool, but I couldn't fit in, so I didn't go. I kept traveling some. My husband and I took a lot of road trips, and we started watching TV shows like Globe Trekker, which later became Lonely Planet, which created images in my head of what international travel could be like. It made it seem more possible that we could do something like that because of the shows that we were watching. So we took some baby steps. After our road trips, we went to Montreal for our 10th anniversary for a long weekend. We traveled to Europe with family members. We went to places where we knew we wouldn't need particularly great language skills to make our way around. And we had some great experiences doing that. Traveling with your parents is quite an interesting experience. If you've never done it, international travel with your parents is I highly recommend it. That was a level of difficulty into itself, I think. Then we expanded what we were doing. We went to Spain during Holy Week, traveling independently. We spent a couple of days in Morocco, where I had one of the best travel experiences of my life in a single day. And then we took unusually, we made a decision to take a tour to China, and we broke away from that group for one day to climb up a mountain. That still wasn't enough, so we took 5 weeks, and we went to Southeast Asia, and we traveled independently around Southeast Asia for those weeks. That was a transformative experience in its own, and it changed our priorities about our life. It changed our expectations about what we wanted to do, where we wanted to live. And shortly after that, I quit the job that I spent my entire 20s preparing for. And we celebrated that by going off to Central America, traveling around for 2 months. So I had to figure something out when we got back, though. I couldn't just be, living off of him. He was still working in his profession. So I thought I would start writing about travel. And it seemed like nobody was really doing justice to the Mississippi Valley, places along the Mississippi. So I thought, I'm going to write about that, and that's going to be my niche. Had a lot of fun doing it. Terrible business model. Never was able to make a living from it. Always had to have some other work. In spite of that, though, we still were able to do a lot of travel. And through those trips along the Mississippi, I also learned how to be a pretty good traveler on my own, without another person around. We went to Japan. We went to Africa last summer for 6 weeks and traveled around, fulfilling a lifelong dream of being able to safari and visit that part of Africa. So all of this must seem fantastic, right? You get to have wonderful experiences, adventures. You get to climb these spiky rocks in Madagascar. Try foods you've never had before, like this banda paisa in Colombia, and you make a bunch of new friends. So we met a lot of interesting people in the places that we went because we were traveling independently. It was awesome. Behind the scenes, though, I was still full of fears and anxieties every time we would leave. I was worried about the physical discomfort from some of these trips. I was worried about looking like an idiot. I was worried about how to speak to people and communicating and being able to have the kinds of experiences that we really wanted to have on the road. It's so easy to be afraid. We're bombarded with messages about fear and constantly told we should be afraid of this, we should be afraid of that. Our TV news is full of all kinds of stories telling us what we should be afraid of. It turns out fear is a terrible guide for living a good life, though. So, little by little, well, before I get to that, so this is reflected in so many things that we do. How many times, when somebody's going somewhere, do we say, well, be safe? And when we're facing a critical decision, how many times do we say, well, better safe than sorry? Better safe than sorry is what kept me from going to Grenoble. It's what kept me away from having a potentially life-changing experience. I had a moment, a light bulb moment, where I realized when I'm traveling, I'm never going to see any of these people again. I can do whatever I want. So I started wearing silly hats. I let people dress me up. Lots of people have dressed me up on the road, I'll tell you. And I had plenty of embarrassing moments. On the streets of Berlin, a man came up and started talking to me, and I apologized. I said, I'm sorry, I don't speak German. And he said, I'm speaking English. I survived. It was embarrassing, but life goes on. I've learned that I can have these bad moments, these embarrassing moments, and I can be fine. And because I pushed through those fears and challenged myself, I've met some amazing people. And I think I've come away with the impression of the world as an overwhelmingly beautiful place. There are bad things here and there, but this is an amazing place where we live, populated by good people. And I have been grateful for the chance that I've had to go out and meet some of them. So it's little by little. It's one step at a time. It's reminding myself that no matter what happens here, I can cope with it. It's pushing myself to try something new. It's that giving myself that extra nudge to climb that extra step and try something. It doesn't have to be a dramatic step. I don't have to jump off a cliff, but just a little bit at a time. When I look back at who I was in my 20s and who I am now, I'm astounded at the differences in who I am. I attribute almost all of that to travel. But like I said, it's more like the winds gently shaping that sand dune than it is fireworks or some single moment. And it's because I ignored that saying, better safe than sorry.